round 7 Supercoach review with me, JD. I forgot what the round was in what was a better round for me. Positive attitude where we're keeping the good energies flowing. As I think it was Jacob on Twitter said, the best part about Supercoach is that you're still in control of your destiny. Each week you can take it one as you come, and love that inspiration from him. Love the positivity. If you've got a positive quote or some inspiration, feel free to drop it below, tweet it at me. I'll use it where I can. So this week 23.94. So good to bounce back in scoring of points, but I think a lot of teams did this week as well. And the reality was, while my team did okay, I was missing a couple of the guys I knew were going to go off. I mean, Gorn it was easy to see from a mile away playing against their third string ruck that he was going to have a big game, and he did. And a lot of people took the captain or vice captain there, so big points lost there. I mean, yeah, just where to go through. So that was one big problem. Stewart was obviously another big one. Some people decided to pick up Parker and some people picked up Mills, both lower ownership percentages. But yeah, lots of players that went off. So even though my team did really well, I mean, lots of really good scores, especially from my premiums. Captain McRae unfortunately managed to pick pretty much the worst, other than DeGoey, even though he played with the Gastro, didn't perform particularly well. In fact, scored basically like a rookie. So pretty tough week for me. It was good to see Petrarca bounce back, and then Clayton Oliver was the one I traded in last week with the 119. And two interesting weeks for trades, I guess. At the end of last week, before the weekend started, I knew that Oliver was the next trade in after Petrarca, and he went 160, and it meant that I couldn't get him as cheap as I would have liked, which was pretty painful. And then before this weekend, I knew that Parker was the one I wanted next week because I needed to continue to shore up my forward line and get rookies off in that space. And he went 150, and it meant I didn't get him as cheap as I would have liked either. So that hurts. And those that were, I guess, a step ahead and had the luxury of going Oliver a week early, or luxury of going Parker a week early, are the ones that have really ended up ahead in points and value. And it means while I'm trying to play catch up getting Parker in this week, they might be looking at another trade, another upgrade elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard to complain about the primos, I guess. There are a couple of deceptive scores in there, like Whitfield's 95. He kicked 3 goals and was very efficient and didn't ton up. So that's a worry. And some articles came out during the week about him talking about his form and being out of it, and definitely still feels like that's the case. Actually, this weekend was a really tricky game to watch a lot of football. So I had my daughter's birthday, which I was preparing for, and that was part of it. Had family up. But then also there were a lot of games with scheduling clashes as well. So it felt like I was picking between one game and the other. So I don't have perfect viewing knowledge this week of everything that went on. But Short was really good. I guess the interesting thing here was they played him on the ball a bit. So who knows whether that experiment continues and whether he'd continue to score well as an on-ball. Like generally, CBAs are a good thing, especially for someone like Short, because coming out of the midfield, if you're using the ball to go inside 50 and you're getting score involvements, that's generally better for your Supercoach scoring than doing long kicks down the line, which is still come out as effective as good. It's just the score involvements and goal assists ends up being worth more to Supercoach. So it potentially could be good for Short. I just worry about whether he's enough of a natural ball finder that he's going to get his own in that midfield, or if it becomes a crisp situation where you kind of can become a little bit up and down depending on your midfield to find ball for you. Dawson was just okay. Could have been a better game, could have been a worse game. He's a bit of a nothing pick at the moment. I mean, if he plays every game and averages 100, it's a perfectly fine D6. Not bad by any means. The Hewitt out was a little bit annoying because it meant that I had to field an extra rookie down back, and it kind of adjusted my structure accordingly. Now, thankfully, that rookie was DeConning, and he actually had a really good week of 77. That's great. It's his best score from the year and will help with his cash gen. His break-even's now down to 1, which is really nice. The projections here have got him kind of getting to 300k or even a little bit more than that before the buy. So that's good, and hopefully get another 50k out of him. Held McCartan, although I'm not sure I'm going to continue doing that this week, and then held Hinge as well. I think the good news with Hinge is that with Brodie Smith's concussion, which was very unfortunate off a spectacular specky, that he unfortunately hit the ground quite hard with, that should open the door for Hinge to come right back into that team. I think there are a couple other Crows players that weren't playing particularly well anyway, but Brodie Smith's the easy route for him in. So I think he should definitely be playing this week, which is exciting for our teams. He's been good and scored well. Is against Carlton the best matchup? Probably not, but yeah, keen to have him back. His break even was 27, so I think the tricky part was he had the 37 in the game prior, so it has held him up a little bit. But hopefully he gets some consistent games now, make some more money. Yeah, Hewitt should be back this week. Had a calf corky, which is really not too much of a concern. It's just, I mean, it's probably better that he didn't play and rest that up and you get a DeConning 77 than what happened with me where DeCoey played and got his 60. And yes, it was 3 points better than Durden, but DeGoey is somewhat of a point of difference for me, which is why it hurt so badly this week. But he's now got 2 poor scores in his system. So I picked him up kind of unknowing that he would get this gastro and have this problem and go 76 and 60. So he's going to drop a ton of cash. Even if he goes, what is projected here, he's got a 94 and 78 in the next 2. He's still going to drop another 40K, 30K cash. And so people are going to be able to get him for under 450, which is a steal. And you should be planning that as part of your upgrades, that you can get DeGoey's a cheap F6 at 450, 440. Definitely someone people will be jumping on the next couple of weeks as soon as you see his form kind of turn around. So yeah, that hurt for me as well. What's his break even at? 139, yeah. So yeah. Ouch. But yeah, so probably a good thing that Hewitt didn't play rather than play through a corky and drop a poor score like DeGoey did. And that's the second week in a row. Butters last week, DeGoey this week, where Gastro's kind of hurt the team. So yeah, in the midfield, like some people would say this is getting greedy, not taking a 119. My captain scores on average have been much better than a 119 this year. Like I was up in near the 150s, I think, until last week. So I would imagine 140s was what my captain average was for the year so far. McRae in his last 3 hadn't gone below 122 against Essendon, and it was pretty obvious to anyone that the Dogs were going to skewer them. So for all of that to happen and McRae just to end up with 89 when there's so many other good scores around. I mean, of my midfielders, like I managed to vice captain the 2 poorest scores. That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing talent. So yeah, Neil was phenomenal again, and looks like he could be M1 for the year, which is pretty crazy. They come up against West Coast this week, which you would imagine makes Neil a very strong captain option. I guess the only hesitancy here is that Neil doesn't always score the best against soft kills. It's not that he'll score poorly or anything. It's just that if you're expecting like these really high ceilings, he doesn't necessarily do that in easy kill games. Someone I would actually like to vice captain. I just don't know if I'll have a loophole after him, given that he plays the Saturday night slot. And there's only 2 games on Sunday this week, being Melbourne St Kilda and Carlton Adelaide. Actually, for those that hold like Owens, still Machito Owens, probably not the worst to continue holding. Just because if he gets dropped, you can use him as a loophole. It means you could do Neil as a vice captain into, go on against St Kilda, Oliver against St Kilda, Petrarca against St Kilda, or you've got Cripps against the Crows. Cripps is actually a really interesting one. It just feels like because of the injury history and his variance, it's hard to trust him as a captain option. So I really wish some of his games were early in the round. I would love to have vice-captained him against North. I would love to vice-captain him against Adelaide and just see what happens rather than trusting him with the C. It just feels like he hasn't built that trust back yet. So yeah, Oliver trading target this week, a 119 on debut. That's perfectly fine. That's great. Yeah, we take those. Took was great. Good to see him bounce back. Was one of those ones that I mentioned, especially if you didn't have Clary. If you already had Clary last week, then Miller should be your target. And I'd say that again this week. Durable, runs on the board. Yes, he's been a little bit inconsistent this year, but he should still be up around that 115, 120 mark, and he's under 600K, so that's a pretty easy buy for mine. And then Petrarca still looks to be a pretty good buy as well at 560K, averaging 115. So I'd say there's value there as well. And then, Cripps is also value and probably the biggest value of the 3, because if he didn't have that injury-affected score, he'd be averaging up at 140 near Neil as well. I think he'd probably be M2 at this point. So, Cripps, a very easy one. And actually, before I move on to the rest of the mids, I know a big question this week is going to be, should I bring in Stewart? So Stewart, the 187, which was top score for the round with Neil, and now has a break even of 69, priced at 607,600. So this is a very hefty price tag. And if you'd been listening to me from round one and you were looking for a defender upgrade, I think throughout the entire period I said Tom Stewart or maybe Doherty. But like Tom Stewart was the one I would go for just because he's durable, proven, he's safe 100s and then upside. And we saw the upside. And yes, we're not going to get that again. And yes, his role was weird as well because they moved him up the ground and played him on a wing a little bit. And then they moved him behind the ball. Who knows what they persist with going forward. But the good thing is he scored well in either position. And maybe like Geelong fans can tell me a little bit more about like how they were game playing it, because that was one of the games I think that was on at a clash spot that I wasn't watching because there was something else on. So should you get in Tom Stewart? And the reality is he's going to be a top 6 defender. I've been saying all year. He's pretty durable, not the most durable, especially with the Liz Frank stuff. And he's a great defender option. But should you be bringing him in at 607,000? I would say no. I would say, we're looking at Miller, we're looking at Petrarca, we're looking at Cripps. All three of these I would back to score more than Stewart, and all of them cost less. So, yes, Tom Stewart's got a low break even and he should go up in cash, but he was also going to have a point where he likely comes down back again before his buy, which is the middle one. I don't know, maybe not, maybe stays at 650 if he continues to score well. But I would back in Miller, Petrarca, and Cripps to all raise more in cash between now and their buys than I would Stewart. I can't see Tom Stewart being a great option just because there's better value elsewhere. If for whatever reason you had like all of these players and you had Parker as well, who's probably another good option this week, and you mucking around with the luxury stuff, then yes, Stewart is a great option. It's just value for what you're getting. I don't really see it at 607k. I also said Mills probably wasn't great value last week at 630k, and then he went, another 130? Please load SuperCoach. And looked really good from the bits of the game I saw. Still not loading properly. It's still not loading properly. It's struggling. Must be a lot of people on. So, yeah, he's got a break even of 41. Also, someone I probably wouldn't be targeting at 678,000. This would be up there with some of them. Or is he the most expensive player in the game probably that isn't gone? Let's just quick. Oh, he might even be the most expensive player in the game right now. Sort by price. There you go. Oh, and by the way, this hurts your team when like the three highest guys you don't own. Ouch. But yeah, this is just hard to justify. Is he the number one midfielder for the rest of the year? I don't think so. And plus he's got Achilles history. He's been phenomenal, and those that are on him, perfect. But if you don't have him, I don't think his value, I wouldn't be paying up for him now. It's a luxury upgrade at the end rather than someone that you chase now, despite how well he's scoring. You just have to hope that where you can deploy the money elsewhere in your team and where you can get that value makes up for not having someone that's, gone bonkers like he has over the last 2 games. I don't want game day with my team. Okay, so then the rest of the midfield, Barry, this is really disappointing. And the most disappointing part about this is that the Lions play West Coast this week, who have been atrocious. And so if Barry had have posted a good score, say we're posting 60 or 70, it doesn't even have to be amazing. It would have kept his break even down instead of being at 86. And then I could parlay him into a West Coast game and hope that he gets a 90 or 100 and keeps on going. And he may still do that. He may still get a 90 or 100. There's just a risk now, a bigger risk that he drops another 50 or 60, loses cash, and it just becomes awkward and hard to deal with. So this is disappointing. And he started off well too. He was on 20 early in the first quarter and just plateaued. Martin is, as an Essendon fan, I don't know what I'd be watching this year if we didn't have Martin. He is calm, composed, good kick, good decision maker. He's got time and space when others don't. I love watching him. He's quickly become one of my favorite Essendon players to watch, and probably for a lot of people that play Supercoach or Fantasy, a lot of their favorite players as well, just because he's a pleasure to own. He has faded out a little bit in games, I've noticed, and apparently that was one of his knocks for why he wasn't on a list, was his fitness and endurance. So he'd hired like a special trainer, maybe it was just a PT, to specifically work on that, and that's part of what helped him get drafted to a club. But boy, I mean, it's an indictment on Essendon that someone that wasn't even AFL listed 2 months ago is one of our best players and one of the most watchable players as well. But yeah, I mean, sorry, enough of like the Essendon session. So yeah, he's great. I would say that he is the last rookie that you want to own, most likely, unless something happens. Dacos has slowed up a bit, and having him forward eligible is probably more useful than the Dacos defense eligible would be my guess. I mean, those two are probably the last two you want anyway on your field, apart from, I guess, one we'll talk about shortly. But yeah, Martin, very, very good. Loved watching his game, continuing to make big money for us. And I think his break-even's at -1 still. Poof, that's crazy. He's at 345 and he's still got a -1 break-even. Now, with Supercoach, his stuff can turn quickly, but enjoy it while it lasts. Yeah, Dacos, this was a game I didn't get to watch today, birthday party. His scoring seemed behind all game, and then he kind of like junked out of 75, which is good. You take it. Where's his break even at? Because I feel like his break even's at a 74. Yeah, and he lost a little bit of cash this week. Somewhat expected. So who's he got? Richmond, Bulldogs, Rio. And then he's got the last bye, which is good. And that's part of the reason why I want to hold Dacos, even if he plateaus with money. So obviously putting him down to defense is great. But yeah, just being able to get into the buys with him and then trade him out during the second or third buy and move points and money around then seems really useful. So I'm someone I still want to hold, even though a little bit worried about the foot that they've been talking about. Maybe he gets a rest this week, which wouldn't be the end of the world for me. I think I've got a decent enough cover that could be okay. Ward got rested, hopefully comes back and plays all right. If I knew they were going to be that, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, they're playing Melbourne, so this is a great game to have him rest because I don't want him to drop a really poor score and be like a forced rookie trade out. If I'd known that they were going to be that competitive with Melbourne, I'd be hoping he would have played. But yeah, Essendon and then Richmond, I think the next two. So two teams that he could score on quite well, which is great for holders and someone I would persist with holding this week. Hopefully he can still get up to 300 or so K, but yeah, maybe a tough ask. He does really need a big game to come through quite soon for that to happen. And then Stevens, so I think he had something like 25 touches in the VFL. Sounds like he did well without sitting in at a light, something like 92 Dream Team. Clarke was much better, which is a problem, like high 30s for disposals. And then in terms of the Swans themselves, so they had Cunningham come off with a groin injury in sub, so it looks like they may have a spot this week, potentially for someone to come in. But you know, they'd been running Bell as the sub, so who knows? And Bell's a forward, but there's no reason to say that he couldn't come into the best 22 and they swap it around. I'm more hoping that they do something like move McInerney or Campbell behind the ball and put Stevens in on the wing, or even put Stevens in behind the ball and see how that goes, which I doubt they would do. But yeah, any of those would be useful to me. So yeah, we'll just see what happens this week and whether he gets a run. But yeah, unfortunately, still looks like he is going to be dead for a little while longer. And playing the fourth game here, you can kind of see above my head, it's not the best loophole because there's not really anyone from the first three games that we're interested in looping unless you're looking at someone in Dogs versus Port. Rucks. So yeah, Witts continues to be really good and a great option. And it seems like there's three main ruck setups that teams have at the moment. So Gawn, Bruce Hayes, Witts, Bruce Hayes, which is less common, and then Bruce Hayes, and then like, I don't know, they had, say, Dixon in R3. And Gawn obviously did by far the best of them this week. Witts did really good, like 136 you're happy most weeks. And this has always been the problem with me for Witts, which is each week he's done well, great, but Gawn's just done 30, 40 points better in some of those weeks. And so you're still losing ground, even though Witts has been a great selection. It's a very tough spot to be in. And I guess it kind of highlights a little bit of why set and forget has been so strong, because even if you get good value rucks in those positions, you have to redeploy the money elsewhere really well. Otherwise, Gorn or Grundy in the past just being that number one ruck can just kill you anyway. So yeah, not unhappy with Wits or anything like that, and definitely like ecstatic with Bruce. Huge money gain, another 70k up this week, up to 367,700. -13 break even against the Cats. And I want to say that something happened to Stanley, was it? So I don't know. That could be a good matchup for Rucks. And then Wits this week has the Swans, so where they're running Latham. So yeah, that should be a decent matchup for him too. Now, the only problem for both the Gorn and Wits owners is that Strandika, or like, I don't know, maybe I should just call him Strands or something. Let's see if I can bring him up. Nope, I do not know how to spell his name. Yep, there we go. No vowels. You just got to remember no vowels. So 102k ruck, -73 break even. He looks like he's another decent money maker as long as he holds his spot. So Dixon was obviously back, but and then like BJ Williams was out. So just like if he holds his spot, he's a good option. And so for those that have Bruce Hayes and then Dixon or whatever, he's a really good downgrade option this week. Strandika. Yeah, didn't watch that game, so I'm sure they pronounce it a bunch and all you know how to say it properly, but unfortunately that's not the case for me. All I know him as like the old R3 loophole from a few years ago in SuperCoach. So yeah, so if you are one of those teams that does have Dixon there, then I think that is a really good downgrade option for you, but not obviously available to me. And then going through the forwards here, so Dunkley was great again. 100th game, getting forward, kicking goals, just a really standard, good Dunkley game. And I must say, with McRae kind of having a couple of off games, if we're vice captaining these two, and maybe even captaining these two, I kind of don't want to captain either of them at the moment. But vice captain for Dunkley, do not mind at all, just because he's got that high ceiling. And if he drops a poor score, he's usually pretty easy to swap off. So in the right matchups, I think Dunkley probably is now a higher consideration for me than McRae. Maybe it's a little bit overreactionary. This has worked better for me so far than using McRae in my loopholes. DeGoey, Gastro. Yeah, this is just unfortunate. I mean, you can imagine if this pick had been Parker, right, over the last 2 weeks, how much of a better situation I'd been in. And the reality was, DeGoey is getting more CBAs than Parker. It's just that he got Gastro and Parker's gone 100 and 150, so 250 points, and DeGoey's gone 60 and 76, so 136 points. So, yep, nearly 120 points plus the cash and stuff I missed out, which is, unfortunate, but that's part of SuperCoach. You can't predict Gastro. So, yeah, just cop it on the chin and move on. Butters, bit of a bounce back game, which is pretty good. I think for those who picked up Rosie, the same kind of observation applies to both of them. And I only got to see a little bit of this game once again. Wasn't really the one I was watching that night. What slippery, dewy conditions in Cairns. So both them and St Kilda struggled to control and use the ball well, and that hurt scoring for Dream Team and SuperCoach alike. Wouldn't worry too much about it. But yeah, positive signs from both of those, and hopefully they continue to build. Cogs is a bit of a watch and a bit of a potential panic here. So continuing to not get the mid-time like Whitfield, and yes, they had good scores this week in a big win, but these don't seem sustainable in competitive games where they're just not getting the mid-time and the opportunity. So I'm not saying that you should jump off him or anything like that, because he's like your 450k, break even of 62. And most teams have much bigger problems than Cogs, and even most teams have much bigger problems than Whitfield. My team that's not doing well has bigger problems than Whitfield, so there's very few teams that are in a position to move them on, but they are a bit of a wait and see. If they continue getting played in these like more forward or outside positions, they are potentially ones that will have to move on or upgrade towards the end of the year just to better players in their positions. And then the big problem in the forward line, so Dixon, Roses, Durden, and McDonald. Of course, I was going to be forced into fielding with DeGoey out, like 3 of these, and it wouldn't matter. I wouldn't have had to made any rookie roulette decisions. But instead, I picked Dixon and Roses just because higher averages, not bad opposition by anything like that. I mean, obviously, Durden had the most favourable matchup against North, and McDonald's had the worst one against Melbourne. But wouldn't you know, it completely stuffed up those rookie sit-start decisions for the week. All right, so on to trading. And I think the big question here this week, well, we've answered a couple of them already, right? Should I be trading in Mills? Should I be trading in Stewart? I don't think they're value. I personally wouldn't. It's not how I play. I'm looking for more value-oriented picks to make the most out of my money. They don't fit the mold for me, so I probably wouldn't. So then who are the good options this week? Parker, we've already spoken about. Great option and probably top of the list for me. So, yeah, looks to be getting those CBAs. Looks to be playing a much better role. He's at 518k, which is still at a 72 discount. He's at 600k this year, despite going up 43k this week. And a 51 break even. And against Gold Coast, who I think he's got pretty good history against as well. This seems like a really obvious trade in, and a lot of people have quite weak forward line, so I really like him. In the midfield, we already spoke about Petrarca, Miller, and Cripps. Those are all top of mind for me for value midfielders, and actually probably why I haven't looked as much there this week for an option to trade in. One to put on your watch list is Andy Brayshaw at 581,500. So down 15k last week and has 157 break even coming into the match against North. So it is possible he hits this break even against North, just quietly. If you already got Parker for whatever reason, I don't hate trading in Brayshaw this week. And he's got, look, some good opposition coming up with North, Gold Coast, Collingwood. And then, yeah, harder after that with Melbourne and Brisbane. But yeah, don't mind Brayshaw as an option at all, and one that I probably will look to get in next week, I'm guessing, as a midfield upgrade. Definitely like him as an option. And then down in defense, I mean, it's a bit hard because, yeah, Stewart, we've already talked about, his price is a bit high. And then Sicily, he's looked good again. He's proven me wrong week after week. So, yeah, just really getting involved in a lot of nice chip play behind the ball. And his inset marking's just on point. So 552k, there's not really a lot of value left in this price either. So yes, he can probably go up a bit from here, but like, that's just like yeah, 10, 20k. I'm going to try and find better value than that elsewhere. And if I need to get Sicily at the end, I'll get Sicily at the end. Does he have the first buy as well? 14. Oh no, the Hawks have the last buy. Okay, that's useful to know. I thought that it was like maybe it's because last year they had the first buy. I thought it was going to be the same as Whitfield. Okay, this is like, he's got a good buy. Not a terrible option then. Who else is it down in defense? So the only other thing is, like, did Sinclair have a good game? I don't think he did, right? So Sinclair went 85, and now he's got the Melbourne. So if he drops another poor score, possible, he's someone that could get cheap. And then Doherty, we talked about, didn't have his best game on the weekend either. He's at 562k, dropped 16k. What did he had a 91. So it wasn't even that bad. But yeah, he's someone that if he has another poor score, although unlikely against Adelaide, could get a little bit cheaper as well. But yeah, just not, I don't know. There may be teams in the market for defenders, but not me. And then what happened with Bowie? There's a few players that are popular on that I don't have. So hold on. Like Bowie did not that well, right? I can't see that score. 63, and his break even is 62. So he's fine to hold for another week. No urgency to trade. Might get a good score. And then I think O'Driscoll's the one that people might need to trade this week. Didn't have the best score. So he's got a 77 break even. Tricky because he's up against North this week. So you could see him bounce back with a good score. If you have bigger problems, I don't mind holding him at all. Because, yeah, North concede massive scores to both mids and defenders. Yeah, don't mind holding O'Driscoll, but I can see why people would want to move him on if they don't have better options, just given he's got the high break even. And then, yeah, Parker in the forward line is good. Oh, and then rookies. Let's talk about rookies. So I talked about Strandy, old mate Strandy in the rucks. Great option. Who else is on the bubble? Let's have a look. Before I do, so McComb, Robbie McComb. So Dogs, mature age, midfielder, huge numbers in the VFL, played a couple of games, and his role has been more like wing, half forward, but had 21 touches, I believe, and 2 goals on the weekend against Essendon. Now, the problem was a bit of a butcher by foot, so just the 63 points, and he didn't have a great score, just a 37 the first one. And it's traditionally quite hard for Dogs players to hold down spots, but overall, I thought he was good. His work rate was good. He won ball. He's good in the contest. Just the use by foot wasn't amazing. But I thought he was better than some of their other players like McNeil, Rourke, Rourke Smith, and Vandermeer. I thought there were at least 3 that he was ahead of. So if he holds, I actually like him as an option. I'm probably going to bring him in 102k as well. That price point's really nice. And their fixture's still pretty soft with Port, Collingwood, and Gold Coast in the next 3. So, if he's going to hold in the winning team and he did well against Essendon, I could see him kind of keeping that up and making some quick money, getting into the low 200s pretty quick. This seems like a decent option this week. The other midfielder that you need to be... there's actually a few midfielders you need to be aware of, but let's talk about Greg Clarke. So this is one that was in our teams all preseason. We knew he was going to be good. And yes, sure enough, he was good. What did he score? 104? Oh, yeah, just killed it. Look, I can't see him losing his spot in that side anytime soon. He is someone that you can go on early, and I'm probably going to go on early because he's a good on-field option, better than most. Just a really strong option. Also 117k, like good price point. When's the West Coast buy? I haven't owned any West Coast players. I haven't even looked. 13 middle buy. I think that's decent. I have a feeling that that's when a lot of us will have a lot of people playing. So you can wait on Clarke, but you don't have to. And then hold on, 2 hours for Carroll. Jack Carroll played his first game for the Blues on the weekend, scored an 95. He looked really good too. Just racked it up, played a good role as well. So not someone I'd probably bring in early unless you already brought in Clarke early, and then maybe he plays the Crows this week, but he looks like he's going to be a downgrade option for us next week. So keep an eye out for Carroll. And then there was one more mid option that looked like he could be a good option for us as well. Also a potential forward. So 102k mid forward in Cooper Hamilton for GWS. I think he had a lower score, 68. Also looked good. So, there's actually a few rookies coming into play, and I would be hot on your boosts to bring them in and continue upgrading your side. The only other ones are Curtis. Oh, wait, I can bring this right down. Bring it down to 210. Oh, Maurice Rioli was good, but he got a lot of junk in this game. He looked okay, but there's a lot of junk. I'm not sure this is going to be a real option, but I guess keep an eye out. Begg is another ruck, actually, with Grundy going down. He got the call up. Another potential downgrade option if you don't go on Strandiker. Potentially go Begg next week instead. Oh, it's actually worth talking about as well. Bruce had a calf knocker complaint and was held off the last 5 minutes of that game. If that's serious, maybe we're trading out of Bruce early. It's just hard to see. If it's a 1 or 2 week injury, probably not. You just take the Hayes cover, but it'd be tempting to move him on for a Strandiker or something just to free up the cash. Yeah, Paul Curtis. So he was good. I've really liked him. I think he's been one of North's better players, and to actually been putting up like 60s, because he's gone 58 in both games, I believe. So to be putting up, basically 60s in as a smaller forward in a really bad team that's got thumped 2 weeks, there's a lot of potential there. He's got tricks, goes hard. I like his game a lot. I think the problem for a lot of teams are, and I can't unfortunately just swap back to my team, but if you've got Roses already, and then you've got, say McDonald or Durden or Dixon, you've already got a lot of rookies that you don't want to put on field. And so if getting Curtis puts you up to 3, so say you've got Durden, Dixon, and Curtis now, and you have to, or say you got Roses, Dixon, and Curtis, which is probably a more common combo, and you're going to have to field one of them every week, you're losing points on other teams that don't have to do that. So I think Curtis is just going to be a victim of can you really fit another small forward in your forward line? I think the answer is no for most teams. So yeah, not a really good option. Reed was okay for Essendon, but his elevated price tag kind of rules him out. Although, like, there's not really many other defenders coming through. But yeah, this is probably not a good option unless for whatever reason it's a really big score next week. Also, he's not an intercepting defender. It's not his role. He's more lockdown. Bedford's a no. He's like, yeah, Melbourne sub. So I'm not even sure he holds once everyone comes back. Haitley is no bueno. Probably not even on a list at the end of this year. I don't know. I don't know what contract he signed, but he's not been good. Callo's a no. And Dempsey's a no. Chandler's a no. And then Bergman unfortunately got injured very early in his debut game with a shoulder dislocation, I'm guessing. Might be out for the year with that, depending on how bad it is. So, yeah, so the important part here is like we're trying to like plan our trades around rookies and where we can free up. So Greg Clarke, I think someone good to bring in this week. If your structure allows it, then Strandika is fine. I can't imagine many teams have spot for Curtis. And then next week we could be looking at potentially Carroll, Hamilton, Rioli, and Begg, all as options. So, with that in mind, it's actually a little bit tricky as well because it means that you it means it's not a bad time to get rid of some of these low like cash generating. So like say I wanted to get rid of Stevens or like Durden over the next couple of weeks or McDonald, it's going to be a little bit easier to do it just because we're probably double downgrading and one upgrading through the next 2 weeks. But then storing some bank to get into some upgrades shortly after that. Which probably isn't the best strategy. You probably just want to be maximizing points and maybe skipping on one of these rookies to get a double up in next week. So maybe you do get Carroll, we don't get Hamilton next week. Just thinking out loud here. Rather than moving on some of the poor performing rookies. Oh, yes. So, yeah, this is like my forward line. You can see the exact problem here, right? I do not want to be fielding 2 of Dixon, Roses, Durden, McDonald every week. This is bad. They're not going above 50, 55 for the most part. And teams that have got Brody in that spot are getting somewhere between 30 and 60 points a week on me. It's just shocking. So, and yeah, D6 as well. Like people might have Dacos here where I've got McCartan or something like that. So yeah, my trades this week have to achieve 2 things. One, I got to get in Parker, like I think everyone should be if they don't have him. And then secondly, you should be trying to fix up your on-field rookie so you're playing a better team each week. So how am I going to do that? That's the question. And I think it's going to have to be Berry. I don't know. I'm going to have enough money that it doesn't have to be. It's going to be Dixon. I think he's stuffed up his break even. It's at 47 now, which look, it's realistically achievable, but then he plays, so he's got Brisbane this week, then he plays Melbourne. That is pain for a West Coast team. And he's not getting hit outs against either of those teams. Yeah, not against Season Rock, so that's not going to happen. All right, so let's bring in Parker. Of course, they put him into midfield. There you go. And then let's bring in Clarke. So I could use just 2 trades this week and finish my team there or like stop around there, but I don't think I want to do this. I think I want to bring in McComb this week. So get rid of McCartan probably. Even though he's going to be back this week. Whoops, clicked the wrong one. Uh-oh, now it's gone haywire. Sorry about that. So, yeah. So even though McCartan's going to come back this week, you'd presume he comes back this week. I can't imagine why he wouldn't. His break even's 44, and then he's got a poor rolling score of whatever it is in his system. And I think he's probably better to move on than some of these other players. And the reason just simply is because I can move Dacos into my defense. So this is better than playing Hinge or McCartan here. Then in my midfield, I've got Clarke and Martin on field, which I'm happy with. And I might be able to... Oh, sorry. Actually, that's not what I'm doing. So hold on. Let's complete. Let's just assume we do these trades. builds a nice little bank for next week too. Especially if I'm going after Brayshaw and something else. Okay. So McDonald, we want to move out so Martin can play in the forward line. So this is much better. Martin at F6 is great. Dacos at D6, which is great. And then in the midfield, the only problem remains is this spot, like this spot. Clarke, we're pretty comfortable with. McComb, not loving having him there. The good thing is that Dogs play the Friday night game, so I can loop him with Ward. Okay, and then in defense, I think, yeah, so both playing. This setup's right. Sorry, interrupted there in the middle there by daughter having a bad dream and spider in the house and all this type of stuff. So I lost train of thought, but yeah, I think the setup is basically like this. Durden and Roses, not excited about. I'll probably just back in Roses. Who are the matchups this week? So Gold Coast have Sydney, which isn't good. And Carlton have Adelaide. Okay, well, I guess I'll take Durden. Just better matchup then. Not really great faith in either. Hopefully they can put out some 60s and make some money. Roses obviously made some good cash this week, which is nice. And break even still negative 14, so should hopefully make some good cash again. We'll get up to the 200k range easy, and then from there, who knows? And then, yeah, vice captain, captain. This is one we're talking about this week. So, assuming Stevens doesn't play again, this is probably my safest bet at the moment. So, assuming Stevens doesn't play, it'll be Dunkley vice captain into Neil, Oliver. Let's see what's their history. So Oliver's gone 133, 134, 108 in his last 3 against St Kilda. Petrarca, definitely not a captain option. Took against the Swans, 146, 148, 102. He's got pretty good history against them. And then Neil against West Coast, 133, 166, 127. I guess it's probably just Neil. Okay, yeah, I mean, for those that have Machado Owens, I'd probably vice captain him instead. But yeah, I think this is the setup for the week. So where are we weak? So Macomb Ward at this like M7, M8 spot isn't great. And like Clarke, just, trusting a debutant rookie there isn't great either. But once we clean up, hopefully this spot next week by getting in Brayshaw and, Carroll looks like a good potential on-field option with Clarke as well. Like if you're looping Carroll and Clarke each week, that seems good. Then I think we're in at least a decent enough spot where we're not losing a ton of points on field anymore from rookies, and we can really focus on upgrading those final premiums. Hopefully I get a bounce back from Degoe this week. That'd be pretty big for me, especially against Richmond, who've been leaking a lot of points. So yeah, but that's everything from me. Hopefully I've covered a lot of the important topics. I know it's been a bit of a long one this week, but yeah, let me know what you're thinking. If you see any better trades for me, always interested in those, or if you've got any positive quotes for the next one. Peace.